Welcome back to Textiles and Treasures. Today I'm going to share a number of items I picked up at 4 different thrift stores over the course of a few days. I found a few things I don't see very often, as well as a few things I'm now on the lookout for anytime I head to the thrift store. So let's get started. As I've mentioned in other videos, sometimes when I find a few things I want, I head back to the thrift store in the next couple of days to see if they put anything out. This time was no exception. I headed back to the thrift store that supports a local charity and found more crafting items, more needlepoint and embroidery items, and I was super excited to find them. This first one I'm showing you isn't really my favorite pattern, but I was really interested in this because it came with a 9-inch hoop. Over the past few years, these embroidery hoops have actually stopped being so available. They're now replaced with ones that are bamboo, so if you can find them for a good deal, it's a good idea to pick them up. I paid $2 for this entire kit, which comes with the embroidery hoop, the instructions, the thread, as well as some lace. I'm not sure I'm going to make this exact pattern, but it's something I might play around with in the future. I also found this Crewel embroidery kit that is not looking like very much in the bag. This was $2 and it contains the instructions and it's actually a pillowcase. It even has the zipper that you can sew up there. And I felt like the colors were a little 70s, but also still pretty fun with the pinks and the greens. And it is a floral design with Crewel thread, and I think I'm going to have fun making this pillow. I also found another needlepoint kit, which is a cornucopia needlepoint. This was also $2. And this says Smithsonian Cornucopia Needlepoint, and it has high quality materials according to the instructions. This kit has colors that are more earth toned, like blue and green, and I think it's going to be interesting to do this needlepoint. I haven't actually looked this one up yet. I probably should, because some of the more museum related needlepoints can actually be somewhat valuable. As I mentioned, this was probably somebody donating their stash for whatever reason, and so I was able to find even more cross-stitch fabric. And cross-stitch fabric can be a little pricey if you buy a lot of it, so I decided I wanted to pick this up as well because it's still sealed. It says what kind of cross-stitch fabric it is, and it was a pretty good deal for some neutral, cool colors here. I paid $2 for this set and $1 for this set. The last needlepoint related item was this needlepoint primer. You can find a lot of these books at big box stores, and they're sometimes interesting to look at because they've simplified the instructions for a general audience. Since I don't know that much about needlepoint, I'm more of an embroidery artist myself, I felt like it would be interesting to learn about needlepoint since it was very popular a couple of decades ago. So this is a good way to get started. Moving on from needlecraft, I went back to Goodwill and found something I was really excited to run into. That is this beautiful green Crackle glass pitcher. I mentioned in my very first video on this channel that I started collecting colorful glass because it reminds me of my grandmother. And of course, Crackle glass was something that she used to have in her beautiful picture window in her old home. I thought this color was absolutely beautiful. Instead of being an avocado green, it's a nice spring green color. I like the shape and it's got some nice weight to it. I think Crackle glass is beautiful and I've continued to collect it since running into it. This was the first time I saw this at the thrift store and I've definitely found a few pieces since then. I paid $2 for this Crackle glass pitcher. I also picked up this beautiful pottery piece. As you can see here, it is brown and blue, very neutral tones. I'm really not exactly sure what this was designed for. It does have a hole in it as if it were a candle holder, and it does have a signature on the bottom. I'm not sure if you can read that there. And I just thought it went well with the other pieces that I picked up a few weeks ago, and so I decided to grab it for $2. I also decided to grab this beautiful blue print here. I had picked this up almost every time I went into the thrift store, but I just wasn't really sure if I wanted to commit to this print. These colors are very ethereal, very fantasy, and something about this print just really drew me in. It's got a nice simple frame, which I also appreciate. So I decided to get this when it went half off from $4 and I only paid $2. In the bottom of the frame, it says that the artist is Gilbert Williams and it's copyright in 1990. As it turns out, Gilbert Williams was a pretty well-known artist. I think this print is really beautiful and it's going to look nice when I finally decide where to hang it on the wall. When I headed back to the local thrift store a couple of days later, I picked up this hobnail votive holder. This is made by Anchor Hawking. This particular one does have the signature logo on the bottom, and I've started collecting these kind of by accident, but I do think that they're really cute, especially when you have a set of all different colors. So this clear one was definitely added to my collection. On this particular trip, all items marked a certain color were 50% off, and that included the lamps. I could not resist picking up up these 2 lamps at half price. In fact, I headed back to the store because I really liked this milk glass lamp with the silver toned bottom. This is more my style, very simple lines, and I love silver, metal, things that are very simple in nature, and so this is definitely a lamp that I'm excited to have. This lamp cost me $2.50. This other lamp isn't exactly my style, but I do like the blue color and the flowers. When I looked this lamp up online, I learned that this one is probably an imitation of a more delicately painted one that I was able to find on eBay. However, for $3, it's not a bad deal, and I really do like it as a bedroom lamp. It has very simple lines and fits perfectly on a corner table. Also on this particular trip, I was excited to find 2 Nintendo DS games. Believe it or not, I actually love Nintendo, and I sometimes go through phases where I am playing my Nintendo a lot. The Nintendo DS system is an older system, so it's not too surprising to find these at the thrift store, but I don't actually come across video games all that often. Each of these were marked $2. This is a game that's part of a series, the Professor Layton series, and I was actually starting to build my collection of this series because it's a puzzle game and it's really fun, and so I was super happy to come across that. This particular game is Mario versus Donkey Kong, and I don't have it. I love traditional Mario, Luigi, all of the characters from the original Nintendo series, so I was pretty curious about this game, Mini Land Mayhem, and so for $2 I decided to pick this up too. Next I headed to Savers, where I picked up this windmill sugar bowl. Now you can tell that this is a sugar bowl because it's got the handles, and this does have a matching pitcher, but I did not find it at the store. I really like the colors of this, but what really attracted me to this particular piece is that it says made in occupied Japan. I tend to pick up made in occupied Japan pieces anytime I see them, just because they're a little piece of history of a certain time, and I like to know exactly when the items were made. This helps me date the item a little better. I'm going to keep a lookout for the picture that goes with this set, but for now this sugar bowl is adorable and it fits nicely with other blue items in my collection. I paid $1.99 for this sugar bowl. As I just mentioned, I had never seen these beautiful colored pictures before, but of course once you start seeing them, you start seeing them everywhere. There was actually a shelf with a number of different pictures, but I decided to just get the ones that I liked best. The first one I'm showing you here is this pretty blue picture. This is not Crackle glass, it's just simple plain glass, but I really like the size and the shape. As you can see, this one is a little bit bigger than the Crackle glass picture I showed you a moment ago, so it's a nice way to add a little more dimension to my colorful glass collection. I paid $2.99 for this picture. Another picture that I picked up at Savers is this pretty cranberry or purple picture here, as you can see here. This one's interesting because it's got a bit of a swirl pattern, it's got some diamond point here, and it's got a little design at the bottom, if you can see it here. And so this one was interesting. It's still got the applied handle here, and it looks really nice as part of the collection. This one was also $2.99. Also at Savers, I picked up this adorable pot. Obviously, I've already put my succulent in this particular pot, but I liked this one because it did come with the saucer, which makes it a lot easier to deal with watering the plant. And they do have a hole in the bottom, which is great when you have plants that need to be watered thoroughly. This one's interesting because it's a little bit darker gray than some of the others I've picked up, and I like the blue flower. And this one did have the label on it, which said that it was made by Counterpoint Japan. So I've been picking up these, and I think that some of them are Counterpoint and some of them are Takahashi. I'm not entirely sure because the labels have worn off with years of use, but this was definitely worth it for $1.99. Later that same day, I headed over to my local Goodwill, where I just happened to come across another one of these planters. This one here has got a white background, it still has that brown around the top, and this has a purple flower. This one is a little different style than the Counterpoint one. I think that this is probably the Takahashi one. Still not entirely sure, but it was definitely worth picking this up for just $1. Every time I see these cute little planters, I grab them because they're perfect for succulents. Another item I just couldn't resist at Goodwill was this beautiful piece of stemware. Now, I tend to avoid getting stemware because it is highly breakable and difficult to store at times, but there was something about this that I just couldn't resist. I had picked it up a few days before and looked at it, liked the lines, but I just don't know what stemware is vintage and what is more modern. But something about this just drew me in, and it was 50% off, which meant that it was 50 cents. As it turns out, this piece was made by Libbey in the Rock Sharpe collection, which is an etched glass collection from the 1940s. So that makes more sense to me with the little bit of Art Deco lines in these ridges here, as well as in the handle. And they have a lot of different styles that they produced in that era, that Rock Sharpe produced in that era. And it's very, very pretty etching. Let's see if you can see it. It's hard to see because of the glare from the lights. It's got some pretty floral etching, and I really, really love this glass. Now that I know what to look for, I'm definitely keeping an eye out for this stemware at the thrift stores and flea markets and other things, and I have found a couple more pieces. There are also other different types of stems, different blanks that they used to produce this particular type of stemware, and some of them I have seen, but unfortunately they've been chipped. I'm definitely going to have to study a little more about the Rock Sharpe collection so I know what kind of bases to look for so that I can identify them. Another item that I couldn't resist picking up on this particular trip to Goodwill was this divided candy dish. You may recognize this pattern. It's a pretty recognizable pattern with these little dots here, beads on the edge, and this is actually the Candlewick pattern by Imperial Glass. I've seen these here and there for about $4 at the antique store. They don't have a whole lot of resale value, but when I found one in Goodwill for just $1, I couldn't resist picking it up. I think it's simple and attractive, and there's something about a simple divided dish that's nice to put out when you have company over or when you just want to have a couple snacks. The last thing I'm going to show you today is this really cool glass tray. Now, I'm not entirely sure what it was intended for originally. It's got these glass panels that are connected pretty well here and some nice handles. I've mentioned in other videos that I like this iron color. I like simple glass for this kind of display when you're eating food because it's easy to clean, it doesn't get condensation on it, you can't ruin it when you put your cold drinks or your hot drinks on it, and I'm always looking for things to serve myself little treats when I have a cup of tea. This glass tray costs $3. I decided to show you a couple more things I got at Goodwill that same week. On my typical Friday night trip to Goodwill, I found this adorable figurine. It's a cute little elephant with his trunk raised, which apparently is good luck, and I don't normally get a lot of figurines. You have seen a couple of them in these videos. I liked the detailing on this particular figurine. I like the way that his color fades towards his legs. I like his little eyes, and I couldn't resist picking him up for $1. I also grabbed this candle wicking kit. Now, before I found this on sale at Goodwill for just $2, I had no idea what candle wicking was. Turns out this is a craft that dates back to the colonial era, and people used to do it with, you guessed it, candle wicks. And there were some really pretty designs. This was actually a pillow kit, as you can see here, and unfortunately it was missing the thread, so I decided to search online for that, and that really got me down a rabbit hole of candle wicking. It's a very interesting style of embroidery, very simple and elegant, as you can hopefully see here. It's raised knots that create a pattern that is very simple and elegant. It's kind of funny that this helps me understand where the term candle wicking comes from when we're talking about this particular glass pattern. So this was an interesting purchase for me because it helped me learn all about a craft I didn't know anything about. Also on this particular visit, I found for $3 this macrame board. I saw this hanging out in the craft section and I knew what it was immediately. And I knew it was something worth picking up because macrame is a hobby that I will probably start exploring at some point in the future. These macrame boards help you measure the length of your piece, and it's nice to get one for just $3. This will definitely come in handy when I start working on macrame sometime in the future. On that same visit, I decided to pick up this bag of crochet pieces for $2. I'm not sure what the intention behind all these pieces were, but there are some really, really cute ones in here. Really carefully done pieces, and especially a lot of Christmas color ones, which you may be able to see throughout the bag. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with these particular crochet pieces, but I felt like somebody put a lot of effort into, I love this one. Somebody put a lot of effort into these, and I really wanted to give them a new home, and I'll find something to do with them. And the bag of these cost $2. Last but not least, a few days after I found my tall water goblet, I also found this tall sherbet glass. And of course, I recognize this style as being Rock Sharpe by Libbey, and it's got some cool etched design here, as well as the Art Deco style bottom. Once again, these were made in the 1940s, and I really, really like them, and I'm going to keep collecting them as often as I find them. It's kind of nice having a set of mismatched glasses rather than having a very large set of ones that match, that are really hard to store. Leave a comment and let me know which items you like best, and if you have any collections going like me with my glass pitchers and colorful glass collection. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for stopping by my channel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my other videos sharing my finds from local thrift shops, yard sales, and estate sales. Have a good one. Goodbye.